Hey guys, my name is Kerstetter and welcome to the channel. Today's piece is going to be a portrait of Sora from the footage of Kingdom Hearts 4 that was dropped back in April. Cage is one of my favorite game franchises, and using Sora to experiment with a new art style seemed like a fun idea. That, and I happened to show some of the trailer's screenshots online, making someone I know think it was my artwork. I quickly remedied this though by letting them know it wasn't. It would be sick if my work looked like that though. Then I thought about it and decided, well, I'm not at that level as a 3D artist, but I make some pretty good drawings. And this person had so much faith in me as an artist, they thought I worked for Square Enix. So I decided to challenge myself to draw a game-accurate Sora from the footage we had been shown. Really, I just think I needed to prove to myself that I could make something beautiful enough I deserved the praise I had been given. I wanted to keep things simple, so I opted out of a painting and stuck to drawing, and of course I wanted to try and work digitally. Pushing my digital drawings to look as close to traditional pencils as possible has become an obsession at this point, and this image was no exception. I think working on this image was good for me in that it helped me practice accurately measuring the character's face. I like doing exercises like this every so often because it's important to me to maintain the skills that I have, even if I'm not using them all the time. Plus, I think it helps enhance my more stylized work as a whole. It's not my main skill or how I advertise my commissions for work, but it's important to me all the same. I start off doing my best to eyeball the basic placements of the features, with some minor measuring. Then when I feel I can't get any further doing that, I go in with grids. I've done my best in the past to try not using grids and just use measuring lines based off of the width and height of my reference, but my mind likes to get distracted a lot and I often lose my place, ending up with inaccuracies. Usually what happens is I go as far as I can using the first two methods, eventually getting annoyed my measurements aren't lining up, and then move on to using a grid. At this point you may be asking, if it's so much trouble, why don't you just use a grid from the beginning? Which I absolutely could, but then I wouldn't be practicing the other skills as intensely, which allows me to push past my current abilities. It may not be my strongest skill, but I don't want to give up completely on measuring without relying on a grid. I don't draw this technically all the time, and just giving up on the technique I was taught seems like a real shame. So I try and work hard with the idea that one day I will potentially learn what to do to be more accurate. Is it slow going, and is there the potential that I may never truly get it? Yeah, I suppose so, but there's also the possibility everything will finally click into place. And I don't mind holding out for it, even if that means putting up with a bit of inaccurate drawing time. It's just my personality. I gotta at least try. Anyway, at first I had the image set up exactly as I see it in my reference, which had the character laying down on a sofa looking sleepy from just waking up. And then I realized, I don't want to draw the exact same expression or image, just very close. So I turned both my reference and pencil work to a more standard portrait position. In turn, this benefits me a lot since it's easier for my brain to draw accurately when things are not at a weird angle. Shh, don't tell anyone. It's important to know when to choose your battles. All this talk of measuring and keeping things accurate, now I'm talking about changing things. Sounds a bit contradictory to me. My only justification is that I didn't want him to look so sleepy and I wanted to add a bit of a smile to his face. We don't see Sora smile at all throughout the trailer, and that seems strange considering what I know of his character. Granted, I haven't played all the games yet, and the new game is meant to be more serious in tone than the previous ones, but I really wanted to see my favorite character with a little smile, so I just purposefully changed that part of the image from the reference. You'll notice as I move through the piece, I do my best to focus on certain areas of the grid. Sometimes even circle parts so I can remember my place. There have been many times I lose track of where I am between my reference and illustration, which has, in the past, caused me to use the wrong measuring lines or square on the grid. This was my way of trying to overcome that. I also make those same marks on my reference so that I can move between it and the illustration quickly. Another thing I try to do to help myself is use different colored lines for the grid and measuring lines. And I can do this really easily since I'm working digitally and don't need to worry about the colored pigment staining my piece. If you try doing this method traditionally, I recommend working very lightly with an erasable colored pencil or pull out some tracing paper you can put over your illustration. Before you do this, be sure to make marks on the corners of the illustration as well as the tracing paper so you get an accurate alignment when you move it away. I've taped tracing paper to the top of my image so I can just flip back and forth, but I think the marks are still important in case your paper rips or your tape moves. Another method you might consider is making marks on a separate piece of paper you have under your illustration and then putting the two on top of a light board. Tracing paper is good for that too since it helps the light shine through the layers better. Again, making alignment marks and or taping your two pieces of paper together helps ensure things stay in place when you add more marks to the paper underneath. I hope I've explained these different techniques well enough since I'm not actually doing them here. A lot of times people are listening to these videos in the background, so I try to make my explanations as clear as possible. Let me know if you would like to see these methods demonstrated in the future. And feel free to share any processes you like to use with your own work. It doesn't have to just be drawing related either, and you might help another artist who works in the same area as you. Hey, I might even give your method a try if it's something I'm interested in. Just let me know in the comments. At this point, you might have noticed I tried doing some shading and then erased it away. Mostly, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to draw his shoulders, and I kind of used it as an excuse not to move forward with that part of the piece. I said in a previous video that I like to move around an illustration and work on other things if I get bored. Well, sometimes, and I try very hard not to do this anymore, I might use it as an excuse not to do something I'm not as interested in. I think this happens when an artist is nervous about working on a part of a piece that they're not confident in, that they feel they're not very good at. I still stand by the method of moving around a piece to work on other things when you get bored with something else, but if it's to avoid something that you don't want to do and don't plan on doing or attempting to do well, then maybe you need to reevaluate why you don't want to work on that part of the image. Consider doing some practice drawings or even taking a break from your piece. And I understand this can be difficult, especially if you're a student and you have something due, or if you're a professional and you have to meet your deadline. If that's the case, do your best to understand your strengths and weaknesses and plan accordingly. If you can, try not to rush through the things that you don't like to do. Sure, we can go into next steps and then go back and change things, but then we get slowed down because we're constantly trying to edit our work. If we can get a solid drawing before we start putting shading or paint down, I think it can save a lot of time. That's not to say you can't do that, and there are many times in the professional world where you'll be asked to change or edit something. The point I'm trying to make is, as artists, our goal is to work as effectively as possible. Planning, practicing, and committing a certain amount of time for things that need to be done can help our work in the long run, and when done effectively, can reduce a lot of stress. Some of the things I was a little nervous about working on were the zippers on his jacket and the chains on his necklace. Like, I've drawn these things before, but they can get really time consuming because I'm not super proficient in it. Also, there's a lot of little details and you need to get them right. And like I said, I was kind of trying to avoid them. This circles back around to what I was saying before about trying to put in the effort to improve skills I want to be better at. One of the key messages this video that I want to share with you is do your best, don't give up, and it is worth it to put in the time to enhance your skills. And don't get down on yourself if your improvement's not very fast. I've been drawing my whole life, been to art school for 5 years, and I still have a hard time drawing hands and feet. Heck, there's a lot to anatomy that's still a mystery to me. The truth is, the more you learn you want to learn. There's always going to be the next level, always something that you're going to be reaching for, which is kind of a beautiful thing because there's always going to be something to look forward to. Of course, this is coming from the same person who gets frustrated really easily when they can't do something particularly difficult. But that's what makes those goals feel so great when we reach them. Anyway, we're coming to the end of the piece, and you'll notice that I actually never did go back and shade anything. I wanted to make this a line-driven piece. I did my best to put in a lot of variation in the line work, as well as added just a little bit of value to soften some areas up. And with that, this image is pretty much wrapped up. And I'll have this available for free as a small download from my shop. At this point in my art career, I'm not really comfortable with selling fan art, but if you'd like to donate through Ko-fi, it would be greatly appreciated. All donations help me to maintain and get new supplies so I can continue to make new videos and art. That's not saying you have to donate to show your support. I would really appreciate it if you took the time to like this video or even subscribe to the channel. I'm also on other social media sites like Instagram where you can follow me under Megan Draws a Lot. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you later.